Commander Allison Wright stood before the large viewport, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The stars stretched out before her, cold and distant, but somewhere among them waited the Vidosian Empire. After decades of space exploration, humanity had finally been invited to join the Galactic Council. This meeting would be the first official diplomatic exchange between humans and the mantis-like Vidosians. "Commander, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Peter Garcia from his station. His fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. "Vidosian vessel detected at Mark 307. "Thank you, Lieutenant." Allison turned to face the bridge crew of the UNSS Serenity. "This is it, people. First impressions matter. Let's show them humanity at its best." What exactly humanity at its best meant was open to interpretation. For Commander Wright, it meant careful diplomacy, cultural exchange, and peaceful cooperation. For Lieutenant Garcia, a weapons specialist with a history of what his superiors called creative engineering, it meant something slightly different. "The peace gift is ready in Cargo Bay 3, reported Garcia. "I personally oversaw the final preparations." Allison nodded in approval. The gift was an ornate mechanical clock, handcrafted by Earth's finest artisans. It incorporated precious metals and gems from all Earth continents, designed to demonstrate human craftsmanship and artistry. What Allison didn't know was that Garcia had made some unauthorized modifications. The ship's communications officer called out, "Incoming transmission from the Vidosian vessel, Commander." On screen, Allison straightened her uniform. The view screen flickered to life, revealing Ambassador Zikthrax. The alien diplomat resembled a six-armed praying mantis standing upright, with compound eyes that gleamed with an intelligence that seemed both familiar and utterly foreign. "Greetings, Commander Wright of Earth." The Vidosian's voice came through the translator with a slight mechanical echo. "The Vidosian Empire welcomes the human delegation." "Ambassador Zikthrax, we are honored by your invitation," Allison replied with a slight bow. "We look forward to establishing peaceful relations between our peoples." The docking procedure went smoothly. As the human delegation prepared to board the Vidosian ship, Allison pulled Garcia aside. "Remember, Lieutenant, this mission is about peace, no weapons, no surprises." Garcia nodded, his expression serious. "Absolutely, Commander, just diplomacy." He didn't mention the emergency feature he had built into the clock. It wasn't a weapon, he told himself. Just a precaution. The Vidosian ship was a marvel of alien engineering. The corridors curved in ways that seemed to challenge human understanding of geometry. The air carried a sweet, spicy scent that made Allison think of cinnamon and something else she couldn't name. Ambassador Zikthrax led them to a large chamber where other Vidosian officials waited. Their mandibles clicked in what the humans hoped was a greeting rather than hunger. "As is custom among spacefaring species," Allison announced, "we bring a gift from Earth to the Vidosian people." She nodded to Garcia and another crew member, who carefully brought forward the large case containing the clock. The case opened to reveal the masterpiece within. The clock stood 3 feet tall, its golden gears visible through crystal panels. Gemstones marked the hours, and the face was crafted from rare blue marble found only in Earth's deepest quarries. "This timepiece represents the finest craftsmanship of our world," Allison explained. "Each component symbolizes aspects of human culture and our home planet." Ambassador Zikthrax approached, all 6 limbs moving in perfect coordination. The Vidosian security team followed closely, their posture suggesting caution. "An interesting creation," said Zikthrax, compound eyes reflecting the gleaming surfaces of the clock. "Our scientists will examine it closely." One of the Vidosian security officers moved forward with a scanning device. Garcia tensed slightly, knowing what would happen if they probed too deeply. "The internal mechanism is quite delicate," he warned, perhaps too quickly. "The gears are precisely calibrated." The security officer paused, multifaceted eyes turning toward Garcia. "Is there reason for concern, human?" "Not at all," Allison intervened smoothly. "Lieutenant Garcia helped transport the gift and is simply concerned for its craftsmanship." The scan began. Garcia held his breath. The Vidosian security officer clicked, something untranslatable to his colleagues. We detect unusual energy patterns within the device, the officer reported. That would be the special luminous display, Garcia explained. It activates on the hour. Perhaps I could demonstrate. Before Allison could object, Garcia stepped forward and adjusted the clock hands to the 12 position. Music began to play, a simple earth melody that filled the chamber. But when Garcia pressed what should have been the chime control, Allison noticed it wasn't the standard configuration. The clock face split open. The Vidosian security team immediately moved into defensive positions, their limbs extending what looked suspiciously like weapons. What is happening? Demanded Thrax, backing away. It's just the display feature. Garcia started to explain, but his words were cut short as the clock emitted a brilliant flash of light. The Vidosians screamed, a high-pitched chittering that made the human skin crawl. The security team dropped to the floor, their limbs covering their compound eyes. Garcia, what did you do? Allison shouted over the commotion. Just a non-lethal defensive measure, Garcia explained hurriedly. The flash temporarily overloads. Compound eyes. They'll recover in minutes. I thought it might be useful if things went bad. Things weren't going bad until you added a weapon to our peace gift. Allison's face had turned bright red. Ambassador Thrax was the first to recover, rising shakily on 4 of his 6 limbs. Humans, the translator conveyed the cold fury in the alien's voice. You bring weapons into our diplomatic chambers disguised as gifts? No, Ambassador, please, Allison tried to explain. This was not authorized. It was a misguided precaution by one crew member. A precaution? Thrax's mandibles clicked rapidly. So you anticipated violence from us? No, that's not. The Vidosian Empire has seen enough of human diplomacy. The ambassador cut her off. You will return to your vessel immediately. This incident will be reported to the Galactic Council. As the human delegation was escorted back to their ship under the watchful eyes of recovered but very angry Vidosian security officers, Allison could barely contain her fury. Do you realize what you've done, Lieutenant? She hissed at Garcia. Years of preparation ruined in an instant. Garcia looked genuinely remorseful. I was just trying to make sure we had options, Commander. I didn't trust them. Well, now they certainly don't trust us. Back aboard the UNSS Serenity, the mood was somber as they departed Vidosian space. The communication console chimed, indicating an incoming message from Earth Command. They want a full report on the incident, the communications officer said grimly. Apparently the Vidosians have already filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. Allison sighed heavily. Tell them I'll submit my report within the hour. She turned to Garcia. As for you, Lieutenant, I suggest you start drafting your explanation now. As the ship accelerated away from what should have been humanity's first successful diplomatic mission, none of the crew realized they had just established a precedent. In the coming years, human peace gifts would become infamous throughout galactic society, and no alien species would ever accept one without extensive security precautions again. 5 years had passed since the infamous clock incident with the Vidosians. Humanity had worked hard to rebuild its reputation among the galactic community. Slowly, other species began to open diplomatic channels again, though with obvious caution. The annual Galactic Peace Summit was approaching, and this year, humans were finally invited to participate in the cultural exchange portion of the event. Chef Nicole Summers wiped her brow as she stood back to admire her creation. The kitchen, aboard the Concordia space station, was state-of-the-art, with equipment designed to accommodate chefs from dozens of different species. Nicole had been selected as Earth's culinary attaché to the Galactic Council, a position she took very seriously. It's beautiful, said Admiral Frank Dawson, who had entered the kitchen quietly. He was the human military liaison to the Council, a position created to ensure no more misunderstandings occurred. The other species will be impressed. The cake before them stood 3 feet tall, with 5 distinct layers representing Earth's ecosystems. The bottom layer resembled the deep ocean, with blue-tinted frosting and sugar sculptures of marine life. Above that was a green layer for forests, then mountains, clouds, and finally a space-themed top with stars and planets made from edible silver and gold leaf. "I hope so," Nicole said, adjusting a tiny sugar dolphin. It took 3 weeks to plan and 4 days to bake. Each layer contains ingredients from the region it represents. Admiral Dawson circled the cake slowly. "It needs something else, something to really wow them." Nicole frowned. "It's a cake, Admiral, not a diplomatic weapon." Poor choice of words. Dawson winced at the memory of past incidents. "I was thinking of a surprise, something to show the technological prowess of humans alongside our culinary arts." "What kind of surprise?" Dawson's eyes lit up. "What if we added a small compartment in the center? When the cake is cut, it could reveal a holographic Earth that rises up and rotates, a symbol of our world offering itself to the galactic community." Nicole considered this. The idea was appealing. "That could work, but I'd need help with the technology." "Leave that to me," Dawson said with a smile. "I know just the engineer." 2 days later, the modified cake was ready. The engineer had created a small device placed in the center of the middle layer. When the cake was cut, it would trigger a sensor that would activate a holographic projector. The image would be a rotating Earth surrounded by olive branches, the ancient human symbol of peace. "I added a backup battery system," the engineer explained to Nicole and Dawson. "Just in case the main power source fails during the ceremony. We can't have our big moment ruined by technical difficulties." Nicole nodded, though she felt a twinge of concern. "Is it safe?" "Completely," the engineer assured her. "It's just a hologram projector with a backup battery. Nothing that could possibly cause any problems." The day of the cultural exchange arrived. The grand hall of the Concordia station was filled with representatives from 27 different species. Each had brought something to share: foods, arts, music, or technology unique to their worlds. The human delegation stood proudly beside their elaborate cake. Nicole's nerves had settled somewhat after multiple assurances that the holographic surprise was both safe and thoroughly tested. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Admiral Dawson addressed the gathering. "On behalf of Earth, we present this creation which showcases the diverse ecosystems of our home planet, interpreted through our culinary traditions." Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Even species with vastly different dietary needs could appreciate the artistry of the cake. Councillor Grix, a bulbous, tentacled representative from the methane-breathing Halflix collective, floated forward in his environmental suit. "The Halflix are honored to witness this display of human creativity," the translator conveyed his bubbling speech. "As hosts of this year's summit, we invite the human representative to perform the ceremonial cutting." Nicole stepped forward with a silver knife that had been specifically decontaminated to be safe for all present species. She positioned it over the cake, aware that all eyes were watching. "In the spirit of peace and cooperation," she said, pressing the knife into the center of the cake. The moment the blade penetrated the designated spot, a soft whirring sound emanated from within. As planned, a beautiful holographic Earth rose from the cake, rotating slowly, surrounded by olive branches that glowed with a gentle green light. Sounds of wonder and appreciation filled the hall. Nicole breathed a sigh of relief. The surprise had worked perfectly. Then the station experienced a minor power fluctuation, something that happened occasionally on space stations of this size. Under normal circumstances, it would have gone unnoticed, but inside the cake, the backup battery system activated as designed. The surge of additional power combined with the already running hologram created an unexpected energy spike. This might still have been harmless except for one detail that no one had considered. Councillor Grix had released a small amount of ceremonial Heplixian gas from his suit, a tradition among his people to mark important occasions. This gas, when exposed to the specific electromagnetic frequency created by the power surge, became momentarily combustible. The resulting explosion was not large, but it was spectacular. A bright blue flame erupted from the center of the cake, shooting 3 feet into the air. The holographic Earth distorted wildly before disappearing. Frosting splattered in all directions. Chaos erupted in the hall, Security personnel rushed in. Environmental alarms blared and several species fled the room entirely. "It's not dangerous," Admiral Dawson shouted over the commotion. "Just an unexpected reaction. Everyone remain calm." But calm was not forthcoming. Counselor Grix had been knocked backward by the explosion, his tentacles flailing in distress as his suit systems worked to stabilize his environment. When order was finally restored, the human delegation found themselves facing a room full of suspicious and angry galactic representatives. "We assure you this was not intentional," Nicole explained, still in shock. "The backup power system interacted with—" "Backup power system?" interrupted the security chief, a reptilian being with scales that had darkened to a deep orange in agitation. "You installed a power system in a food item without declaring it?" "It was just for the hologram," Admiral Dawson tried to explain. "A simple battery backup in case of power failure. A simple battery that created an explosion when it encountered Halflixian ceremonial gas," the security chief noted dryly. "How convenient that you had this backup ready for just such an occasion." "That's not fair," Nicole protested. "We didn't know about the gas. It was a completely unforeseen interaction." But the damage was done. By the next day, security footage of the exploding human cake had spread across galactic networks. The human delegation was not asked to leave the summit, but they were subjected to extensive questioning, and their quarters were searched for other surprises. As a direct result of the incident, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session and passed a new security regulation. All gifts, presentations, or items brought by humans to interspecies gatherings must be thoroughly screened by security personnel before being permitted in public spaces. When Admiral Dawson reported back to Earth Command, he couldn't help but notice the pattern forming. "First the clock, now the cake," he said wearily. "We keep trying to impress them and we keep making things worse." His superior officer sighed heavily on the other end of the communication. "Perhaps we should stick to verbal greetings for a while." 9 years after the cake disaster, humanity was still trying to fix its reputation in the galactic community. The incidents with the clock and the cake had become legendary stories told in alien bars across the galaxy. Humans were seen as either dangerously clever or just plain dangerous, depending on who was telling the story. Earth's government decided on a new approach. Instead of political or military representatives, they would send cultural ambassadors. Art, music, and science might succeed where traditional diplomacy had failed. Dr. Gregory Bennett sat in his lab on the garden world of New Eden, where humans had established a cultural embassy. As a xenomusicologist, he studied how different species created and experienced music. He believed music could bridge gaps between cultures better than words ever could. "How's it coming along?" asked Harmony Director Lillian Ortiz as she entered the lab. Her official title was Designer of Interactive Musical Instruments, a position created specifically for this project. Gregory looked up from the sphere-shaped device on his workbench. "Almost finished. The final sound calibrations are complete. The device they called the Harmony Sphere was beautiful. About the size of a beach ball, it had a surface covered in touch-sensitive panels that changed color when activated. Inside was a complex system that could produce sounds pleasing to every known sentient species, automatically adjusting frequencies to match the hearing range of whoever was nearby. "I added the biometric lock as you suggested," Gregory said. "It will only activate fully when presented to the Skire representative." Lillian nodded with approval. "And the tracking beacon?" "Hidden in the core, undetectable by standard scanners. If anyone tries to steal it, we can track it anywhere in this star system." The Skire were an avian species with shimmering feathers that responded to sound vibrations. They were known throughout the galaxy for their love of music and their distrust of humans. If the Harmony Sphere could impress them, it might open doors that had been firmly closed since the first diplomatic disasters. "Do you think they'll accept it?" Lillian asked, gently touching one of the panels which glowed soft blue in response. "They've agreed to a demonstration," Gregory said. "That's more than we've gotten from most species lately." 3 days later, they stood in the main hall of the Cultural Embassy. The room was filled with diplomatic representatives from 12 different species, all curious to see the latest human gift and perhaps witness another spectacular failure. High Elder Irayan of the Scray perched on a specially designed stand. His feathers shimmered with a mix of gold and purple colors, indicating curiosity tinged with caution. A team of security officers hovered nearby, scanning devices in hand. "Before we begin," announced the security chief, a four-armed being with skin like polished granite. "The human device must be inspected." Gregory nodded politely. "Of course. We expected nothing less." The security team approached the Harmony Sphere, which rested on a simple pedestal in the center of the room. They ran various scanning devices over and around it, occasionally conferring in low voices. "We detect no explosives, no harmful radiation, no toxic substances," the chief finally declared. "However, there appears to be an energy source we cannot identify." "That's the sound generation system," Lillian explained. "It needs power to create music." The security team looked unconvinced, but found nothing they could officially object to. They stepped back, though they remained alert. Gregory stepped forward. "High Elder Irayan, representatives of the galactic community, we present the Harmony Sphere. This instrument was designed to create music that can be enjoyed by all species, adapting its output to match the hearing range and musical preferences of those nearby." He gestured to Lillian, who approached the sphere. As her hand hovered over it, the panels nearest to her glowed gentle green. When she touched them, soft notes filled the air, pleasant and soothing to human ears. "The sphere responds to touch and proximity," Gregory continued. "It can be played by anyone regardless of their physical form, and it learns, adapting to create more pleasing combinations over time." High Elder Irayan's head tilted to one side, a sign of interest among the Scray. His feathers rippled slightly in response to the music. "Would you like to try it, High Elder?" Gregory asked, extending his hand toward the pedestal. After a moment of hesitation, Irayan stepped down from his perch and approached the sphere. The security team tensed but did not interfere. As the Scray drew near, the sphere's colors shifted to match the gold and purple of his feathers. It was a nice touch that Lillian had programmed in. When Irayan extended a wing hand toward the sphere, it began to emit a series of harmonic tones that made his feathers ripple with pleasure. "It responds to my presence," Irayan said, his translator converting the musical chirps of his natural speech. "How does it know what sounds will please me?" "The sphere analyzes the bioelectric field that all living beings generate," Gregory explained. "It can detect subtle changes that indicate pleasure or discomfort and adjust accordingly. What happened next would be debated for years afterward." High Elder Irayan's unique bioelectric field, more powerful than the humans had anticipated due to the Scray's evolved sensitivity to sound, created an unexpected feedback loop with the sphere's sensors. The Harmony Sphere's colors began to shift rapidly, cycling through the spectrum. The music grew louder, changing from pleasant harmonies to increasingly complex patterns. Irayan stepped back in alarm, but this only accelerated the feedback loop. Suddenly, the sphere began emitting ultrasonic frequencies. These were completely inaudible to humans but caused extreme distress to the Scray, whose feathers were sensitive to such sounds. Irayan screeched in pain, his feathers standing on end as he collapsed to the floor. Chaos erupted in the hall. Security officers rushed forward. Lillian tried desperately to shut down the sphere, but the biometric lock they had installed as a security measure now prevented easy deactivation. "Turn it off," someone shouted. "I'm trying," Lillian yelled back, her fingers dancing across the panels that now glowed angry red. It took 3 technicians working together to finally power down the malfunctioning instrument. By then, High Elder Irayan had been rushed from the room, his feathers damaged and his dignity severely bruised. Later, after the diplomatic representatives had left and the humans were alone in the embassy, Gregory sat with his head in his hands. "We made the same mistake again," he said quietly. "We added security features that backfired." Lillian nodded sadly. The biometric lock was supposed to prevent unauthorized use. The tracking beacon was supposed to prevent theft. Neither was meant to harm anyone. The next day, a formal complaint was filed with the Galactic Council. The Scray claimed the humans had attempted to assassinate High Elder Irain with a disguised sonic weapon. Human protests that it was an engineering oversight were met with skepticism. The Galactic Council added a new protocol for dealing with human gifts. Along with the standard security screening, all items must now undergo sonic scanning to detect any hidden audio capabilities. As Gregory packed away his research notes, preparing to return to Earth in disgrace, he couldn't help but wonder if humans would ever be trusted in the galactic community. 3 incidents, 3 well-meaning gifts, 3 diplomatic disasters. It was starting to look like a pattern that would never be broken. 12 years had passed since the Harmony Sphere incident. Humans had spent those years focusing on medical and humanitarian efforts, hoping to rebuild trust by saving lives, rather than trying to impress with fancy gifts. This approach was working, slowly but surely. Human doctors were becoming respected throughout the galaxy for their dedication and innovative treatments. Dr. Elizabeth Palmer stood in her lab aboard the medical station Asclepius, carefully adjusting the settings on her latest creation. She was a xenobiologist who specialized in medical technology, developing tools that could work across species barriers. The device before her looked like a sleek silver wand with a glowing blue tip. It was a universal diagnostic tool that could safely scan any known sentient species. Try increasing the sensitivity by 5%, suggested specialist Ryan Mitchell, who stood nearby monitoring readings on a tablet. Mitchell had once been a military engineer before changing careers to medical device design. His expertise in power systems and emergency backups had proven invaluable to the project. Elizabeth made the adjustment. Like this? Perfect, Ryan said, nodding with satisfaction. Now it should be able to detect even the smallest cellular changes without causing any discomfort. The device, which they called the Metascan, had been in development for 3 years. It could identify diseases, injuries, and genetic conditions in any species registered in its database. Best of all, it required no invasive procedures and caused no pain. For species with unique physiology or cultural taboos against being touched, it was a revolutionary advance. "Are you nervous about the presentation tomorrow?" Ryan asked, setting down his tablet. Elizabeth sighed. "Of course. After our history with interspecies gifts, who wouldn't be?" "This is different," Ryan assured her. "The Metascan is purely medical. The Silicon Consciousness requested it specifically after hearing about our preliminary results. They want this technology." The Silicon Consciousness was a collection of crystalline entities that thought and communicated through complex patterns of light and electrical impulses. They had been among the most resistant to human contact after the previous incidents, but their unique physiology made medical treatment challenging. The Metascan offered solutions to problems they had struggled with for centuries. "I know," Elizabeth said, "but I still worry. If something goes wrong again." "It won't," Ryan promised. "We've tested it on every species in the database. 3 separate security teams have screened it, and I personally designed the emergency power system to be completely safe." Elizabeth nodded, trying to believe him. The emergency power system had been a point of contention between them. Ryan insisted it was necessary to ensure the device would work even in crisis situations. Elizabeth had argued that adding any unnecessary features was asking for trouble, given humanity's track record. The next day, Elizabeth and Ryan stood in the main auditorium of the Galactic Medical Conference. The room was filled with medical professionals from dozens of species. At the front row sat Counselor Divrak, the representative of the Silicon Consciousness. Their crystalline body caught the light, breaking it into rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. "Before we begin," announced the conference security chief, "the human device will undergo standard security protocols." 3 different teams approached the Metascan, which sat on a transparent pedestal. Each team represented a different alliance of species, each with their own scanning technology and methods. The humans had expected this and stood patiently as the teams worked. "No explosives detected," reported the first team. No radiation beyond standard medical levels, confirmed the second. No sonic capabilities that exceed safety parameters, added the third. The security chief nodded. The device passes all standard human gift protocols. You may proceed with the demonstration. Elizabeth stepped forward, her heart racing despite her outward calm. Thank you all for coming today. What we present is not merely a gift, but a tool that we hope will benefit all species in the galaxy. The Metascan is a universal diagnostic device capable of detecting health issues across all known, sentient physiologies. She picked up the device and showed it to the audience. It works by emitting a specialized field that interacts with cellular structures without causing harm or discomfort. The data collected can identify diseases in their earliest stages, when treatment is most effective. Ryan joined her, tablet in hand. We've prepared a demonstration with volunteers from 5 different species. With your permission, Counselor Devrak, we would like to include the Silicon Consciousness as our 6th volunteer. Devrak's crystalline body shifted slightly, a sign of agreement among their kind. We are willing to participate. Your technology, if it functions as claimed, would be most beneficial to my people. The first 5 demonstrations went perfectly. The Metascan accurately identified a minor respiratory infection in a Vidosian diplomat, detected early-stage cellular degeneration in an elderly Halflixian, and even found a previously undiagnosed genetic condition in a human volunteer. Then it was Devrak's turn. The counselor moved to the demonstration area, crystalline body glittering under the auditorium lights. The scan is completely painless, Elizabeth assured them as she raised the Metascan. It will take approximately 30 seconds to complete. She activated the device and the blue light at its tip pulsed gently as it began to scan Devrak's crystalline structure. The readings appeared on Ryan's tablet, showing complex patterns that neither human fully understood, but that the device's AI could interpret. Everything was proceeding normally until the 20th second of the scan. Devrak's crystalline body suddenly emitted a bright flash of light, something that had not occurred in any of their test simulations. The Metascan's readings spiked dramatically. What's happening? Elizabeth asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm not sure, Ryan replied, his fingers dancing across the tablet. The counselor's structure is creating some kind of feedback with the scanner. The Metascan began to overheat. Safety protocols should have shut it down, but something was interfering. With the system, the feedback loop was growing stronger. Shut it down, Elizabeth ordered, reaching for the manual override. Wait, Ryan said. The emergency power system is trying to compensate. If we shut it down now, we could lose all the diagnostic data. Before Elizabeth could argue, the Metascan emitted a sharp pulse of energy. It wasn't powerful by human standards, but it created an electromagnetic wave that rippled through the room. To the humans and most other species, it felt like a mild, static shock. To Devrak and the Silicon Consciousness, it was devastating. The electromagnetic pulse temporarily disrupted their communication network, essentially giving them the equivalent of a seizure. Devrak's crystalline body froze mid-movement, the lights inside flickering chaotically. Medical teams rushed forward as security personnel surrounded the humans. The Metascan was confiscated immediately, and Elizabeth and Ryan were escorted from the auditorium. Hours later, they sat in a detention room waiting for news. Counselor Devrak has recovered, a security officer informed them eventually. The disruption was temporary. Elizabeth closed her eyes in relief. Thank goodness. However, the officer continued, the Silicon Consciousness is convinced your device was deliberately designed to attack them. They cite the emergency power system as evidence. It created the pulse that disrupted their network. That's ridiculous, Ryan protested. The emergency system was designed to keep the device functioning in critical situations. It was a safety feature, not a weapon. The security officer gave him a long look. Specialist Mitchell, our background check revealed your military history. You designed weapon systems before moving to medical technology. That was years ago, Ryan said. I changed careers specifically to help people, not harm them. But the damage was done. News of the incident spread quickly through the conference. By the end of the day, the Galactic Council had implemented Human Gift Protocol Alpha. requiring a bomb squad to be present whenever humans presented any item to another species, regardless of its intended purpose. As Elizabeth and Ryan prepared to return to Earth, they couldn't help feeling that humans might never overcome their reputation for creating dangerous gifts. "We really were trying to help," Elizabeth said softly, as they watched the medical station shrink in the view screen of their departing ship. "I know," Ryan replied. "But maybe that's the problem. We try too hard to help, to plan for every possible emergency. We can't help thinking about what might go wrong. And in doing so," Elizabeth finished, "we make things go wrong." 40 years had passed since the first contact incident with the Vidosians. During that time, humans had caused 4 major diplomatic incidents, all stemming from what they considered thoughtful gifts or helpful technology. The clock, the cake, the musical sphere, and the medical scanner had all become legendary examples of why alien species approached humans with extreme caution. Diplomatic Officer Susan Miller stood before the grand entrance to the truth chamber within the Galactic Archives. At 53 years old, she had spent her entire career trying to improve relations between humans and the rest of the galactic community. Today might be her last chance to make a real difference. "Are you ready?" asked Engineer Kevin Washington, who stood beside her. Unlike many previous human representatives, Kevin had no military background whatsoever. He had been chosen specifically for that reason. "As ready as I'll ever be," Susan replied. "Do you think they'll listen this time?" "They have to," Kevin said. 40 years of misunderstandings is enough." The massive doors slid open silently, revealing a circular chamber lined with glowing panels. In the center stood a pedestal where the Grand Arbiter Vox waited. The ancient gelatinous being served as the neutral mediator for the Galactic Council. Their translucent body pulsed with soft blue light, indicating a neutral emotional state. Around the chamber sat representatives from each species that had experienced a human gift incident. The Vidosians, the Haflixians, the Skray, and the Silicon Consciousness were all present, along with dozens of other species who had come to witness this unusual proceeding. "The Truth Chamber is now in session," announced Grand Arbiter Vox, their voice resonating not through air, but directly in the minds of all present. Diplomatic Officer Susan Miller has requested a formal investigation into what has become known as the Human Gift Protocol. Susan stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "Thank you, Grand Arbiter. For 40 years, humanity has been treated with suspicion. Our gifts must be screened by bomb squads. Our technology is assumed to be dangerous until proven otherwise. Today, we ask for a fair hearing to explain why these misunderstandings keep happening." Murmurs filled the chamber. Not all of them sounded friendly. "We have reviewed the evidence of the 4 major incidents," Vox continued. "The clock that blinded Vidosian security, the cake that exploded during the Peace Summit, the musical sphere that attacked High Elder Irain, the medical scanner that disrupted Counselor Devrak. What defense can humans possibly offer for these actions?" Susan took a deep breath. "No defense, Grand Arbiter. Only an explanation. I would like to introduce Engineer Kevin Washington, who will demonstrate the core of our problem." Kevin stepped forward, carrying a simple metal box. After 40 years of incidents, even this was enough to make several representatives shift nervously in their seats. "Don't worry," Kevin said with a small smile. "This box contains nothing but a model to help explain human thinking. It has been thoroughly scanned before this meeting." He placed the box on the floor and opened it, removing a set of small devices that he arranged in a circle. In the center, he placed a model of a human space vessel. "This represents a standard human transport ship," he explained. "Now, I would like the representatives to imagine they are designing this ship. What would you include?" The Vidosian representative clicked his mandibles. "Engines, life support, navigation systems." "Exactly," Kevin agreed. "Now, what if the engines fail?" "The ship would drift in space," said the Haplixian representative, bubbles forming rapidly in his environmental suit. Kevin nodded. "So what would you add to prevent this disaster?" After a moment of silence, the Silicon Consciousness representative's crystalline body flashed. "A backup engine system." "Yes," Kevin said. And if both the main and backup engines fail, the crew would send a distress signal, suggested the Scray representative, feathers rippling. And if communications are also down? The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered this dark scenario. This is the core of human thinking, Kevin continued. We have a saying, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We call it Murphy's Law. It shapes everything we build. He picked up the model ship. A human-designed vessel would have main engines, backup engines, emergency thrusters, a distress beacon, backup communications, escape pods, survival gear in those pods, and personal emergency beacons for each crew. Remember, Susan stepped forward again. What looks like paranoia to other species is simply how humans approach design. We always plan for the worst case. The clock had a defense mechanism in case we were attacked, she continued. The cake had a backup power system for the hologram in case of failure. The musical sphere had security features to prevent theft. The medical scanner had an emergency power supply to ensure it would work even in a crisis. None of these were weapons, Kevin added. They were safeguards, multiple layers of protection against potential failure. Grand Arbiter Vox's gelatinous body pulsed with a thoughtful purple light. You are suggesting that humans instinctively build redundant safety features into everything? Yes, Susan said simply. What other species see as hidden weapons humans view as responsible design? Vox turned to the assembled representatives. To verify these claims, I propose a direct mind link with the human representatives. With their permission, I will examine their true intentions regarding these incidents. Susan and Kevin exchanged glances and nodded. They had been prepared for this possibility. Vox extended tendrils of their gelatinous form, which gently touched the foreheads of both humans. For several minutes the chamber was completely silent. Then Vox retracted the tendrils, their body now pulsing with a bright yellow light. I have examined their minds and memories, Vox announced. The humans speak truth. The incidents were not acts of aggression or sabotage. They were the result of a species that constantly prepares for disaster. The representatives began to talk among themselves, some clearly surprised, others still skeptical. However, Vox continued, this does not change the fact that human gifts have caused harm, regardless of intention. The bomb squad protocol will remain in place. Susan's face fell in disappointment, but Vox was not finished. But we will add a new requirement. Humans must document all safety features in their gifts, no matter how minor they may seem. No more surprises. It was a compromise, but one Susan could accept. As the meeting concluded, representatives approached the humans with new curiosity. Many had questions about this strange way of thinking that led humans to build so many layers of protection into everything they created. 1 week later, a new human delegation arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters with their latest peace offering. As expected, they were met by a full bomb disposal team. As the alien technicians carefully examined every inch of the gift, the humans shared knowing glances. The lead human diplomat approached her alien counterpart. We understand why you need to check everything, she said. And we've included detailed documentation of every safety feature this time. The alien looked at her with all 4 eyes. Your species is very strange. You think of every possible disaster and try to prevent it, even when the chances are tiny. We have another saying on Earth, the diplomat replied with a smile. Better safe than sorry. The alien's translator paused, struggling with the concept, then finally rendered it in a way the alien could understand. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Perhaps that should be the official slogan for human diplomatic relations, the alien suggested. And so it became. From that day forward, every human delegation traveled with documents bearing the official seal of Earth alongside the words, Human Diplomatic Corps, better safe than sorry. The bomb squad protocol never went away. But at least now, the rest of the galaxy understood why humans built things the way they did. They weren't trying to cause harm, they were just being human.